Hi, guys. Welcome to the chat. I hope that you guys are able to hear me okay, see me okay, that there's not going to be any more issues. At least I'm hoping. So, welcome to the chat. So glad to see you guys. I'm actually going to scroll back a little bit because it looks like you guys were kind of starting ahead of time, and I love to see that. So, thank you for doing that. But let me know in the comments section, and I feel like my camera's a little off, so bear with me. Okay, so let me know if you can hear me, see me. There's no static, there's no anything. Okay. Let me go through some of this. Hi, Dragon Man Sassin. So nice to see you on the chat. Welcome back. We have Caitlin Brown. Nice to see you. Welcome to the chat. We also have Bay Gang. Okay, I think that's it. Bay Gang. Okay. Well, welcome to the chat. Nice to see you. Eros or Eros, if I'm saying that correct. Welcome to the chat. Glad to have you, Cheryl. Glad to see you. Welcome to the chat. Christine, Luna, welcome to the chat. So glad you could be here. You say this is my first live chat. So glad you could come tonight. I see our video. Welcome to the chat. Glad to see you. Fairy Girl, I see you. Welcome to the chat. Courtney, glad to see you. Vanessa, welcome to the chat. Ronald Zion, welcome to the chat. MZ November 68, welcome to the chat. I don't remember seeing you, so glad you could catch a live. So glad to see you guys. Yesterday, we had a little bit of a hang up. Most of you who were there with me yesterday, I don't know what was going on. I thought, okay, I'm just being hacked again. That's what I thought. And awesome. Glad to see that. Thank you, Vanessa. I'm glad it's way better. And so I'm like, okay, I can't be doing this to the people that are looking for me to give them knowledge and looking for me to support them. And, and so I was a little frustrated. So I emailed YouTube and I'm like, what was going on? And, they don't even know. So we're going to leave it at that. They don't even know, so glad that tonight is a lot better. Thank you, Dragon Man Assassin. I see that. Very, very good. So let me give you a little bit of an overview of what I was going to talk about yesterday, what we're going to talk about tonight, which is the topic of, really, is there a difference between an evil person, and I'm going to break down what evil means, and a person who's a narcissist? And we might as well go ahead, just for the sake of tonight's conversation, and add in a sociopath and a psychopath, because the rules of the game are different for them. Narcissists, sociopaths, psychopaths, they don't abide by the rules of kindness and love and family and togetherness. That just doesn't exist to them. They almost create their own world, their own reality. It's almost like, how if you have PTSD and you're dissociating from something that is triggering you, or, it's a reminder of a trauma that you experienced or you kind of pull away from reality psychologically to survive. A narcissist, a sociopath, and a psychopath kind of does that, but they do it in a way that's intentional, because they, for lack of a clinical term, they just don't care. They don't have the ability to care. No matter how nice they may appear on the outside, that's basically the shallow expression of who they are. The narcissist, the sociopath, and the psychopath, they are not able to go deeper and be empathic and caring. It doesn't exist to them, or it doesn't exist to us really either. So I'm going to kind of define what evil is tonight for you, and I think I'm going to start with the question: do you believe, I'll put it this way, do you believe that you have a family member who is a sociopath or a psychopath? Or do you believe that you have a family member that is just completely evil? And by the time we get to the end of this live chat, you'll know what I mean by that. So let's jump in. Okay, let me give you just briefly, before I jump in as well, I forgot to do this, is give you a little bit of background on me. So my grandfather is a known pastor. I mean, he's been a pastor, a spiritual person, someone who's really well-versed and educated in theology and philosophy for over 20 years. So this is kind of like his career, his lifestyle. My mom is I'm going to call her an informal bishop and a spiritual person. She's really not into the whole organized religion. She's more existential, philosophical, spiritual Christian. So that's my mom. So I grew up under both of them, my grandfather and my mom. And for me, I went to college and I actually studied psychology and philosophy. And then when I went into grad school, I started studying existentialism. So this is kind of like my backyard, guys. So what you're going to get tonight, I'm going to highlight what does an evil person actually look like. I'm also going to highlight what's called the 7 processes of evil. That is going to interest you, I'm sure. And then I'm going to give you some time to talk to me in the chat box. I want to talk to you guys in the chat box tonight, and then we're going to wrap up. So let me give you a definition of evil. Okay, this is an inherently complex topic, not only for psychotherapists, not only for existentialists or philosophers, theologians, but for the whole world. I think there's a lot of people who find the topic of evil inherently complex because it really feels like for most people, it stems from a religious area, when the reality is that it really doesn't. If you remove religiosity from the equation, you really can get pretty deep into the area and the study of evil processes, behaviors, thoughts, feelings, and you can really learn a lot, not only about yourself, but other people as well. Now, evil in the realm of philosophy is broken down into 2 important categories. One is narrow and the other is broad. Now, broad is basically this bad state of affairs. It's like this broad, I'm going to be evil to the whole world, or I'm going to do something that's going to harm the whole world, or I'm just an evil person with evil intentions. It's what I do. I actually live and breathe this desire to harm and hurt other people or other things. It's more of a broadened idea of evil. But the narrow category of evil is basically this: I have literally narrowed down what I want to do. I may have a reason why, I may not, but I've narrowed it down. It is morally wrong. I know it's morally wrong. Quite frankly, I just don't care. So broad and narrow. Now that actually breaks down into 2 more categories. And I see you guys commenting, so I'm going to get to you. That breaks down into 2 more categories: natural and moral. Natural evil is basically this: it results from unintentions. Okay, so let me clarify that. Natural evil has nothing to do with intention, right? You could be doing something that could be perceived as evil and not even know that it's evil, right? But you're engaging in a particular behavior, you're entertaining a train of thought, right? Or you're feeling a certain way against someone or something that's not okay, but you don't have the intention to harm. Now, moral evil is I have the intention to harm. I decided to take an evil step and create a difficult reality for somebody else. I'm going to throw out some names. An example, Jeffrey Dahmer. Okay, I'm going to throw that in there, right? You could categorize him as somebody that is under the heading of moral evil, right? He planned his attacks. He thought it was a game. He got some pleasure from it. He derived some pleasure. There was some intentions. We can also throw someone in there like Nicholas Cruz. He's going through the sentencing phase right now. If you go online, Google Nicholas Cruz sentencing phase, just listening to the terrorizing stories and watching his lack of emotional expression, his affect, his face is just totally not involved. It's not there with the people who are hurting. Check it out. I mean, to me, that's a huge psychological study to just watch Nicholas Cruz. Watch him. It'll astound you. I would categorize his evil as a moral evil. It's a moral wrong, and he had intentions. Let me give you something that may be a little bit more relatable. So let's say, for example, you have a family member who has jealous tendencies, or they are jealous, and it's known. They intentionally try to derail you from your life. This family member intentionally tries to harm you. Maybe they get you fired. Maybe they get you thrown out of your home or out of your family member's home. Maybe they talk against you. Maybe they stir the pot, stir the gossip mill or the gossip pot, right? Maybe they do all of these things with the intention to just sink you, right? And they don't care if you cry. They don't care if you lose. They don't care if you're put out on the street homeless. They don't care. right? They are completely 100% against you. I actually put some examples of this kind of evil, moral evil, in the description box for you. So you're going to see some things. If you click on those links, you're going to see what is categorized as moral evil. It's just so intentional. And the person who engages in the intentional evil against you will maybe do one of two things. One, they're going to either not deny it, which is kind of saying, yeah, I'm engaging in these behaviors, right? And they may be very arrogant about it, very pompous. Or they're going to deny and deny and deny no matter what. Even if the evidence is there, they're going to deny it. These kind of people are just strictly evil, and there's no other way to put it. We can't even categorize this kind of behavior in the Diagnostic and Statistical Manual as evil. So what do you think we do as clinicians? We kind of put you under the heading of a narcissist. We say, okay, we don't know why you think this way and behave this way in life. So we're going to go ahead and just put you into the DSM. We're going to say this is narcissism. We may even say that this is psychopathy, that you were severely abused as a child. We may even say something like you were spoiled and entitled, and over time you became a sociopath. Like we're gonna sweep it under the heading of a narcissist, a sociopath, and a psychopath, because we just can't define evil as a clinical thing. And that is really the truth of some of the behaviors of people that walk through the office, let me tell you. And in some of the behaviors that I see, even in the families that I treat, it's hard to believe. And it's sad, right? Because we cannot clinically define evil. It's defined philosophically, theologically, if I could say the right words, religiously. It's really difficult. And some would even profess to say unethical for clinicians to call anything evil. And so therefore, sometimes we are forced to put it under the heading of a sociopath, and a narcissist, or a psychopath. Okay, I'm going to pause here. Let me go to the comment section. Okay. All right. So I'm going to start out with, first, I'm going to read Christine Luna, because I love her comment. She says, and I love that she points out knowledge here. She says, there is so much power in knowledge, and sometimes others want to keep us in the dark. Oh, that's so sweet. I just read the last line of that, Christine. I'm grateful for Tamara and others who are on the front lines for the truth. Oh, thank you so much. And I am too, because I wouldn't know some of this if I didn't have people behind me, backing me up and giving me the knowledge, and really, allowing me to develop a broader audience, in different areas of my profession. So I'm glad for that as well, Christine. But thank you for that. That was so, so sweet. Okay. Yeah, Mark, I think I'm understand. Oh, hi, G. I see you. Hi, CT. I see you. I'm so sorry. I meant to say hello to you. Let me go back to Mark. Mark, you said burning bowl for evil, virtual spirits. I'm going to say, yes, I agree with that. If we're talking about the same thing, yeah, I do believe that there's some evil virtually. Okay. And, I think some of those people who come on and they storm live chats and they say things that's inappropriate or hurtful. I had someone come into a live chat 2 years ago when I first started. I was really inexperienced with this. And I was talking about PTSD and trauma, and they came in and start saying very ugly things against the people who were in the chat box. And so do I think that there's evil on social media? Absolutely. There's spiritually it's evil. Behavior that can hide behind a camera, right? Or hide behind a computer, or hide behind a cell phone. You don't see the person, and they don't have to think before they do anything. They just do it. So can evil pop up virtually? Absolutely. I think it's a cesspool, honestly, for evil. CR video says, I think both of my parents have a number of narcissistic traits. I think it's a product of poor education, poverty, and insecurity. Yes. So let me kind of define this for you in case I haven't defined it in the past. Narcissism is basically this, that I have two things at work here. I have the genetic makeup, the biological influence to become a narcissist. It's in my genetic code somewhere, right? But then we also have environment. And like you point out, environment, poor education, sometimes entitled people modeling entitlement around you, like your parents, your friends, peers. I think you also said something like poverty and insecurity. Yes, that's all environmental. Insecurity is more so internally, and that can also lead to narcissism. And if I haven't said this before, I'm saying it now, that not every narcissist is confident. Sometimes they are broken, and they are traumatized, and they are heartless sometimes because they don't see worth within themselves, and so therefore they spread all that evil, if you will, to the rest of us who are just trying to live life in a peaceful way. But you're right. See our video. It's a combination of all of those things and more. Yes, Sunflower Heather, you did make it. So glad to see you. Okay. Yeah, Mark said, don't forget broad evil versus narrow evil. Yes, I think I touched on that. Thank you for that, Mark. Hi, David. I see you. Welcome to the chat. Okay, Cat Box or BX, welcome to the chat. Glad to see you. This person says, so when the narc manipulated me to steal and harm me, he was morally evil and he provided me with a bad check. Yeah, absolutely. So that could be defined as morally evil, right? He didn't care what the consequences to you would be. He didn't care that it's a legal offense. It's, also, something that can get you a lot of time behind bars. That kind of evil is a moral evil. Yes, I very much agree with that. Very much agree. Sure did said, I made it. Yes, you did. Glad to have you. Cheryl says, I am so broken into many, many parts. I believe this abuse was systemic, which leads me to believe it was evil. Absolutely. If I step off of the philosophical road that I'm on right now with you guys and go to the religious side of this, I do believe that there is systemic evil, even in religion. There's systemic evil even in the church sometimes, where there's child molestation and there's sexual abuse and there's sexual assault and there's pastors paying their staff to do certain things that's not okay. There's a lot of cover-ups, and sometimes even in religious sects, if you will, or like cults, there is this mind control, and it's something known as group think that happens. Groupthink is this: I'm in a group where everybody thinks the same way, and if I go contrary to that, then I'm going to somehow be ousted, harmed, maybe even harassed. And so therefore that fear and that desire to be in with them kind of keeps me stuck. And so groupthink is also a part of that religious, that systemic evil that can happen in religious settings. So I'm glad you mentioned that, Cheryl. Thank you for that. Hi, Tian. Nice to see you. Welcome to the chat. Lotta Gotti says, welcome to the chat. Glad to see you. Says, hi, Tamara. Thank you so much for covering things. It means a lot. You're welcome. Absolutely. And I'm so glad to hear that you guys are open to this kind of conversation, because a lot of people are like, oh my God, she's not talking about evil. Yes, I am, because it exists. I'm not going to deny that it does. I'm one of those clinicians that says, okay, is this an evil person, an evil spirit, or is this a clinical issue? And so I have no hesitation in thinking that in my mind, because I think we're pretty complex human beings, and life is complex, and evil is inherently complex. And so why would I say, evil doesn't exist? Everything is scientific and clinical. I think that's so limited. So I'm glad to see that you guys are open to me kind of highlighting this side of things. So Caitlin Brown, so nice to see you. Welcome to the chat. Says, my dad is a narcissist, and I believe at times my mom is one too. I found myself drawn to guys like my dad, but not anymore. Healing is necessary for sure. Absolutely. What happens, I think, in those kind of situations, Caitlin, is you're raised under a certain modeling, right? Dad or mom or whoever it is modeled certain behaviors. And in a sense, we kind of learn how to kind of mold to that so that we can survive. That's the only word I can come up with in my mind at this time. But we kind of mold to whatever our parent is so that we can survive. And so sometimes in molding to that parent, we don't realize that we're fostering certain things within ourselves that then somehow attracts or is drawn to a certain kind of person. And so I'm glad you brought that up as well. I have some clients that come in and they're like, I married an evil man, or I married an evil woman. Please get me out of this. What do I need to know? And I had someone desperate come to me like that 2 years ago. And she's like, I married an evil person. I married my evil, murderous father. How do I get out of this? And so, my God, I needed so much consultation just to carry her case, let me say. Ronald Zion says, isn't evil more spiritual than religious? Absolutely. I totally agree with that. And thank you for bringing that up, Ronald. Yes, I think it's more spiritual, philosophical, existential than religious. But religious people, Catholicism, Christians, Baptists, like all those different, denominations, they kind of have said, come on, we're gonna take this word evil in, and we're gonna make it a religious thing. And so most people associate religion with evil, but I really don't think that that's broad enough. There's a thing, and there's a category of study known as demonology. There are also professionals who are demonologists, and they study evil for a living. And so it's not a religious concept, but unfortunately, it's kind of been masked as a religious concept. Courtney Fraser says, why is it so hard to admit these things? Well, I think I just covered that a little bit, Courtney. That's a fantastic question. Again, I think evil is associated with religion. The other piece of that is I think people, it's easier to kind of scoff at something sometimes than it is to just embrace it and say, you know what, maybe this does exist. And so I think some people would rather say evil doesn't exist. It's all what we see on the outside with our eyes, I think it's easier to do that than it is to just say, there's another side of this life that I completely don't understand. And maybe I had an evil person in my family and just didn't know it. That's humble. I think it's easier for most people to just say, you don't know what you're talking about. I'm not going to even embrace that area of knowledge. That's foolishness. So I'll answer that wonderful question with that. Dragon Man Sasson says, Twitter can be very nasty. I just say hello to my friends there. Yeah, I don't blame you. Don't even get into political arguments. None of that. No. Annabis, the opener of ways. Welcome to the chat. So glad to have you. Hello, back to you. Glad to have you. Okay, let me get back to the topic, guys, and then we'll continue to talk. So let me give you some things to think about in terms of evil. So when you're talking about an evil person, so somebody who is morally evil, right? They don't care what it is that they do to other people. They're numb to it. They're cold. They're callous. Some people, I'm sure, and especially in your family, right? This is more about family. But I'm sure there's some people in your life, you just look at them and you're like, how do you think this way? What is this? And so then that's when we start drawing all of our conclusions of, oh, that person's a psychopath, right? But some things to kind of think about, in the realm of existentialism and philosophy, evil is categorized in these various ways. I'm going to name them for you. Psychopathy, arrogance, narcissism, impulsivity and reactivity, callousness, coldness. There is also an inability to empathize, right? So again, this is existentialism, philosophy, theology that's defining evil. And also something that's known as honor killings, right? So an individual who engages in an honor killing. I'm going to leave that for you to do your own research on. I put some things in the description box for you already that talks about honor killing. So look that up. But when we look at this category of sociopaths and narcissists and psychopaths and impulsive and reactive individuals and people who are unable to have empathy and callousness and arrogance and pompousness, really what we're saying here is this is not with everybody, with some people, there's absolutely no consciousness. There is no conscience as well in this category. And so existentialism and philosophy is saying, isn't this evil? That all of these things can exist, but there's no consciousness. There's no conscience that's associated with it. So I just want you to think about that. I also think too, we need to look at the fact that there are some family members that just do not have a moral compass. They are out to get you. And, it's so hard to wrap your mind around that, right, guys? Like, how do we accept the reality that sometimes we have family members who just completely hate us and they want to destroy us? If you click on the link in the description box that I have listed, and it's honor killings, you're going to see it. Click on that link. You're going to see a 12 history case. And this is not abnormal of a case. So, this is something that happens more than we think. Clinicians see a lot of it as well, who deal with like trauma and psychopathy and sociopathy. When you click on that link that I added in the description box, you're going to see a father who is the exact definition of evil. And when you learn about that story and you read it, you're going to look at that and say, man, he's outside of the DSM. Okay. There is no clinical book in this world that can describe why he is so evil and dark. And so go ahead and check that out. I put that in the description box for you. Deviant behavior, deviant desires, all of that stuff that is engaged in or done without a conscience or some kind of conscious awareness of how it's going to affect somebody else is also sometimes defined as evil. We also have to look at something known as the dark triad. I talk about that all the time on my channel in different ways, but I'm going to go ahead and connect a video in the description box after this that talks about the dark triad. The dark triad is basically this: narcissism, there is psychopathy. So it's a triangle. So there's narcissism, psychopathy, and there's a big, huge word, Machiavellianism. I probably said that wrong. It's Machiavellianism. I skipped over some syllables. I'm gonna put the video in the description box for you. It's a huge, huge word. And these three things, okay, it's called the dark triad because these individuals have absolutely no ability to empathize. They don't care about you or anybody else. They are completely dark and evil individuals. They are not out for anybody's good. They're out to get you, to stumble you, to harm you, to hold you back, to create some kind of moral evil, right? To get you to do something or to do something themselves. That's not okay. And that is the dark triad in a nutshell. I'll post that video for you. People who derive some kind of desire from hurting animals, people, situations, those kind of individuals as well in the realm of philosophy and existentialism are also defined as evil. Those individuals who are receiving some kind of internalized reward for doing something like tripping someone up when they've worked so hard to get a promotion, right? A family member who just decides to abandon you as a child and never turn back and look for you and never show up in your life, that can be considered evil. Somebody who has abused you physically, psychologically, sexually, emotionally, and has absolutely no conscience, has no ability to empathize with you or to see what they've done to hurt you, that can be considered evil as well. It's all in the realm of deviant behavior, deviant thought processes that leads the behavior, and then therefore it ends up destroying you in the end. All right, guys, I'm gonna go to the comment section and see what you guys are saying. Okay, so Courtney Fraser says, it seems so normal to me as a person with disabilities and the way I am treated in general by society at large. So to me, it feels like society at large is this way. Yeah, and I'm so glad you brought that back, Courtney, because I saw you make that statement somewhere else. I agree. I think people with disabilities, physical disabilities, emotional, psychological, they're all mistreated in some way by society. Can you categorize that as society has like this evil core in some ways? Perhaps. You know how you feel, Courtney, and if that's the way you perceive it, then that's the way you're perceiving it. I have seen psychopaths. I think I had one psychopathic father. What he would do, and I'll give you this example of a pure psychopath. What he would do, and this was 4 years ago, I had this client, and what he would do is he would actually find different places during the day to park and watch people. He would people watch. Okay, sometimes we do like to people watch. I like to see kids playing at a playground. I like to see grandparents and their grandchildren. I like to see married couples holding hands. Like, I like that kind of stuff, right? Do I go seeking it? Absolutely not. But when I see it, I'm like, oh, that's so sweet. This guy was nothing like this, okay? And what he would do is people watch. He would find somewhere to go, a playground, a mall, a restaurant, a McDonald's. He would sit and he would look and wait for disabled individuals. And we're not talking psychological, we're talking physical. If he would see a wheelchair, an older person, a senior citizen get out of their car with a cane or whatever, he would intentionally laugh or indirectly offend by laughing out loud, like he's laughing at something he's reading, but he's really laughing at the person. And I'm trying to think of the other thing his grandson told me that he was doing. It's escaping me right now. But his grandson actually was really smart and got every bit of it on his phone. And I addressed the dad. I'm like, and this is okay. And he justified it by saying, I get bored. This is the way that I feel emotionally and psychologically stimulated. So I do it. And he had absolutely no moral compass, no care in the world. He did not like people with disabilities. So some of this stuff is just so hard to digest as a clinician. And I know it's hard for you if you're experiencing it. So Courtney, I'm sorry if you're feeling that way, and I'm glad you brought that up. That's a really good point. Yeah, Fairy Girl says groupthink. Yes, that's in here as well. Sunflower Heather says a lot of evil has been done by humans in God's name. Yeah, I have to say it as well. And let me tell you, my personal life, even in my profession when it's necessary, I'm one that professes living by, the name of God, and I am living my life as a Christian, and I do things that are pleasing to God in my life. At least I strive to. So as one who is well-rounded in that area, and in other words, raised under it, developed under it, and then I follow it in my own world. And I also teach in some of those ways as well. Let me just say, there's a lot of evil in the area of religion and things done in God's name. And I think that's so horrible, because people start to associate God or Christians or, even this topic with nonsense, right? Because there's a lot of evil that's done in the name of God and in the name of religion. So it's pretty sickening. CR Video says, doesn't religion cave in on itself if evil is present from the inside? Absolutely. I like that point. How do you believe in and channel faith from someone who performs evil acts and expects blind obedience? Yeah, absolutely. And I think that's why it's really good for us, CR Video, to say to ourselves, okay, are we using our mind and our logical abilities, or are we just blindly following a person who claims to be religious and of God and faithful, and the list goes on? So you really do, have to kind of separate yourself from that person who's leading you or professing to believe in God and all of that, because they could be totally wicked and evil. Doesn't mean you have to follow them, right? So, and you're right. Religion does cave in on itself. Absolutely. I very much agree. Courtney's so sweet. She says, that is why I appreciate you, Tamara, and other mental health professionals, as you are teaching me differently. Oh, thank you so much, Courtney. I'm so glad. Mark, YouTube censored you, but I'm going to go ahead and approve it. My mother had a SHIT hemorrhage when I declined the moral evil of perjuring myself on her behalf. That is so horrible. So horrible. Let me just add to this as well, Mark, and this is for the rest of you too, that sometimes when you feel like you have an evil parent, that is so traumatizing, right? I mean, we never expect our parents to be narcissists, sociopaths, psychopaths. We never expect our parents to abuse us and create post-traumatic stress disorder within us. But when you have a parent, and it doesn't make any logical sense as to why they're treating you the way they are. The dots are not connecting. You don't know why they're doing certain things to you. You don't know how they're doing certain things to you. It just doesn't add up. Then I think it's okay then to say, I have an evil parent. It's really traumatizing. I also posted in the description box below a celebrity figure who she wrote I'm going to say like a memoir that said, I'm glad she died. So I posted that in the description box for you. And she talks about the evil things that her mother did to her as a child star. So go ahead and check that out. I did get the book as a therapist because I want to know what my clients are reading. And so it's pretty sad, some of the things that she says in that book for sure. Evil was there. I'm just gonna leave it at that. Go ahead and check out that memoir. Fairy Girl says, I had to pick apart my own behaviors. I feel safer myself and with others now too, with room to improve. Yeah, absolutely. Yeah, sometimes we do have to pick apart our own behaviors, right? While we're looking at the people that have traumatized us and harmed us. Okay, let me keep going. Let me keep going, guys. I want to make sure I'm getting all of you. Vanessa says, I recently said that about my mom. Her attitude changed suddenly and she was so cold. I hung up and I was like, she's so evil. Yeah, absolutely. And you do have to question, like, why is this person giving me this like internal sense that there's no red blood in you? Like there's nothing, you're ice cold. Like, what is this, you know? And, if I had to switch over into my clinician mode, I would say this is a psychopath, this is a sociopath, this is how they behave. Some of them are just worse, some are worse than others. Some of them are just really bad off. But if I step out of my clinician hat, I encourage you to see it as evil. Like there's nothing warm about you. You sound different, you act different, we're not connected emotionally, you have no empathy. I'm going to call it what it is. My mom used to say, call a spade a spade. Yeah, Vanessa says her jabs and how nasty she was. Yeah, absolutely. Yeah, absolutely. Fairy Girl says so hard to comprehend. Nobody says it's sad but true. Miss Shank says sad but true. I'm going to tell you how protective my mom is. Okay, I'm going to give you guys like a little bit of a breather here. My mom just texted me. She's like, Tamara, it's 9:05. It's 9:05 p.m. Eastern time. That's a mom for you, right? She checks on me more than I realize sometimes. So I just happen to see her text. She's like, it's 9:00. You probably should. Are you still in the office? So, Lisa, hello. Glad to see you. Yeah, a little bit, but you're here. So I'm glad to see you. Lisa actually posed a question to me in a previous video. And she said, can you define evil for me? And I tried it yesterday before we had some technical difficulties. Let me just define it, Lisa, in case you missed the very beginning. I think evil is basically this: anything that occurs that has no logical, psychological, or emotional sense to it, right? You can't make sense out of it. It's something that you more so feel, I think, than you can actually define. So the DSM defines things for us, right? Psychopathy has this criteria, sociopathy has this criteria. Well, philosophy and existentialism cannot necessarily define evil because there's so many people fighting over the definition. So I've decided in my own profession to say, hey, here's what evil is, and I've kind of defined it based on a social psychologist, partly defined it, I'll say, with the help of a social psychologist, Philip Zimbardo. Okay, so you may want to look him up. He has a book, I think, called The Lucifer Effect. He also has a book that talks about the 7 processes of evil. And I'm going to go over those before we wrap up tonight. So these are kind of things you may want to research, because this has a lot to do with psychopathy and sociopathy and narcissism, and it may open your understanding to what's going on in your very own family. So Lisa, play back the live chat when this goes off, and you're probably going to get that definition you were asking me for. Okay, blessed in every area of my life says I'm late, but I made it. Yes, I'm glad you made it. Welcome to the chat. Okay. Yes, Ryan, nice to see you. Glad to have you. Welcome to the chat. He says, what about sadism? Yes. Thank you so much, because right when once I'm done with the chats, I was going to go right back to my documentation, which is sadism, and I was going to pick and pull that apart. So thank you so much, Ryan. We need to switch seats. You're way ahead of me. So thank you for that. Yeah, sadism, I think, is, it's like this manipulative cold indifference, right? It's this I like to see things hurt. I like to see things experience pain. I'm going to say maybe 7 or 8 years ago, when I worked in a psychiatric hospital treating children and adolescents, I had one 9-year-old. Scariest situation ever. He had a diagnosis of pyromania, which is kind of like this obsessive nature, this obsessive tendency to set fires, liking the way it looks, liking, kind of the ability to set them and start them. So he had the diagnosis of impulse control disorder, and he had what's known as pyromania. And then he also started engaging in, pulling wings off of birds, trapping birds and suffocating them. He once chopped off the head of another animal in the backyard. Like, he was really sadistic. And this young man, 9 years old, it was terrifying. And this was kind of like my first real case of what we call conduct disorder. Which is where there's no empathy. There's no connection to the feelings and the thoughts and the rights and the emotions and the needs of other people. You just do what you want to do. And so this individual, most likely, if he doesn't get proper help, is going to become a psychopath. And we're not going to say a sociopath, because he was charming. And so psychopaths are very charming. Sociopaths tend to be a little bit more clumsy. But psychopaths tend to be a little bit more thoughtful. They tend to be a little bit more strategic. And so he was that kind of a kid. But it was really scary. So sadism, sadistic behavior. Yes, Ryan, that's all in there as well. Stacy, welcome to the chat. She says, hello, Mrs. Hill. Good morning, ma'am. You're so beautiful and fine, love. Oh, thank you so much. Thank you. I had a little kiddo that left today, and he's like one of my favorite 5-year-olds. He's like, Miss Tamara, can I give you a hug? And I'm like, yes. And he hugs me and he's like, you're such a pretty therapist. I'm glad you're my therapist. And I'm like, what? So all of those kind of things are so humbling and so sweet. So thank you for that. That goes straight to my heart. Thank you. Blessed in every area of my life says, sounds like most of my relatives. Oh my God, I'm so sorry. I mean, sometimes that's kind of how it goes, right? Like, you're the loving, empathic person, and those family members are just like nothing like you, right? They're cold. Oh geez. Here I go, messing it up. I hit the wrong button, guys. Bear with me. I'm so behind on comments. Oh my Lord. Okay, Robert H., welcome to the chat. Glad to see you. Says, if one believes in reincarnation, they will have to face their actions in another life until they get and make a shift, be it to lifetimes or 100. Oh, okay, Robert. I'm sorry. I read that in a choppy way. I get what you're saying. Yeah, my colleague believes in reincarnation, and he and I go rounds over this because I'm like, well, how do you know that's going to happen? And he's like, come on, Tamara, so we go rounds with this. Okay. So, Robert, I get your argument. I get his argument. Let me just say, when my grandmother passed away 2 years ago, I started seeing, my mom and I, we started seeing doves, we started seeing other things. And we did kind of throw up a question mark, like, is this reincarnation? Like, what is this? And so, do I believe in it? Yes. Am I careful that I don't believe everything is reincarnated? Yes. I try to be careful that I'm not getting sucked into that theory so much that I lose sight of reality. But I do believe in some reincarnation theories for sure. Okay. Courtney says, thank you, Tamara. I think it is just based on how I was treated growing up. You're welcome, Courtney. She says, I think it was just based on how I was treated growing up. So I can see it better now than the good. So I might be clouded by the past. Yeah, that's possible too. Like sometimes I have to check myself, and especially when I do live chats or when I see people as a, in my clinician therapist role, I do have to check myself. Is this my stuff? Is this my past? Is this my baggage? So for you to do that, Courtney, I think it's therapeutic, and I think it's healthy to, kind of see yourself and say, okay, maybe I'm being clouded, by the past a little bit. I think that's okay to do. Auntie Lou, welcome to the chat. Glad to see you. She says, remember that religion and spirituality are not mutually exclusive. You don't have to go to church to be a spiritual person. 100%, absolutely, totally agree with you. Is church a supportive community sometimes? Yes. Is church also a gossip mill, a drama house, a manipulative tool used sometimes? Absolutely. And so there's good and evil even in that, right? There's good and bad there. So I'm with you, Auntie Lou. Like church is not the it all, and you don't have to go there every Sunday, every Friday, every Wednesday to be considered spiritual. No, you do not. I'm glad you brought that up. If you choose to do that, fantastic. I think it's wonderful, but no, you don't have to. It's not a requirement. And to me, I haven't seen anything necessarily, even in the Bible, even in scripture, that really tells me that that's a 100% must. We can interpret it however, but I'm just saying, me personally, I haven't seen any 100% concrete proof that you're not spiritual if you don't go to church. Okay. Ryan says, what advice do you offer to someone who has fallen in love with someone who has strong narcissistic tendencies, but moments of kindness and vulnerability? Ryan, you are asking some really awesome questions. You're making some great comments here. Let me just say that the number one thing to keep in mind. So let me step out of talking about evil family members right now. So if we're talking about romantic interests and you feel like you've fallen in love with someone who's a narcissist or someone who's potentially an evil person at the core, you do want to step back and ask yourself, what is it about them that I like? And is it some kind of vulnerability within me? Is it some kind of desire that they're meeting of mine? Is it that I just now found out that they're this way, and at the same time, I like them, I love them, I want to be a part of them. I mean, that's some therapy work. If you were my client, I would say, let's step back here. A narcissist is really good at covering up. So do you love the shell of the person, right? The person that they project to you, or do you love the real person? And so that's a huge therapeutic question. So I encourage you to do some introspection just based on that question alone. Are you in love with the shell, the person that they display to you, the person that they appear to be, if they're a narcissist, or do you like the person at the core? And if so, why? I hope that was helpful. Latoya, Rochelle, Boston Webb. Hi, Latoya. So glad to see you. I'm not sure I remember you. So welcome to the chat. Glad to see you. David, welcome to the chat. Hold on, guys. I'm trying to scroll without losing you. David said, this live stream is very eye-opening. I'm learning more about my MIL. Okay. If you weren't in my last two chats, you probably don't know this. I'm not good with acronyms. I'm so out. Like, I don't even know what MIL means. I don't. I'm sorry, David. So somebody help me there, please. I have no clue. Empowered woman, so glad that you're here on the chat. Welcome. She says, I enjoy your bringing to light family dysfunction. Absolutely. Yes. And I hope you guys see that I'm trying to keep family dysfunction as the center of this topic, right? Not religion, but I'm really trying to keep family dysfunction at the core of this conversation. Rose M, welcome to the chat. My computer's dying. So we're going to wrap up here in a little bit, guys, because my computer is literally saying plug in your charger. Okay. Ross M says, what if a narc dad truly showed he cared about enriching my lives, my and my twins' life, but he manipulated us to keep us in the house during our parents' divorce when we were 14. I mean, I think that's some kind of form of evil. Let me get my charger. I don't want to lose you. I think that's some kind of like form of evil for sure, guys. Like I think a family member, a father, a parent that kind of manipulates the situation to their, to their benefit, and doesn't seem to have any kind of consciousness or conscience. I think that's evil. I'm going to categorize it as such. Yeah, I think it's evil for sure. Okay, all right, let's keep going, guys, because I want to be able to wrap this up. Hi, Teresa, nice to see you. Welcome to the chat. Keen, Marco, welcome to the chat. Thank you so much for that sweet compliment. Thank you. Yes, you're welcome, Lisa. Okay, see our video, and then I'm going to talk about the 7 processes of evil, and then we're going to wrap up. You're welcome, blessed in every area of my life. I just saw that. You're welcome. Okay, so let me read this. See our video, says Tamara. Don't we all have the capacity for evil? I think the Milgram experiments at Yale. Go look up Philip Zimbardo. You'll understand what we're talking about here. Where the subjects administered potentially lethal electric shocks while watching through a one-way mirror. Okay, so go look up the, first of all, look up the Stanford prison experiment. And then you also want to Google Philip Zimbardo, and you're going to find all his experiments on evil. So see our video saying, don't we all have the capacity for evil? I disagree with that. I do not think we all have the capacity for evil. Now, that's just my professional and existential and philosophical and spiritual opinion. And some of my colleagues agree with that as well. Do we have the capacity to do things without a conscience and sometimes without considering how it's going to hurt somebody else? Yes, but is that really evil? That's questionable. So, I mean, I'm going to go through Philip Zimbardo's theory of evil in just a second here. And he's kind of the one that zoned in on the 7 processes of evil. I'm not sure I agree that we're all capable of evil. Are we capable of doing things in the name of surviving? Yes. Are we all capable of doing things that may not be socially appropriate for whatever reason? Yes. But are we all capable of evil? I'm not sure I agree with that. No, I don't know about that. I don't know. I kind of no. I shudder to think that we're all capable of evil. I really do. And maybe that's a part of me that needs to grow. I just don't agree with that. All right, guys, let me go through the 7 processes of evil. Okay. So the first thing Philip Zimbardo kind of focuses on, and this is something you may want to think about, is, the first thing he says is mindfully taking small steps or taking the first step to do something. So here's what he means. If you're in a group where there's some kind of social pressure, it's that group think mentality I was just talking about. And for some reason, you're the only person there that may be a little bit uncomfortable with doing something evil or doing something that can harm someone. I'll give you a family example. Let's say, for example, you're in the middle of your family. You guys are, having a holiday. You're the youngest, or maybe you're the middle child. I don't know. It's Christmas. You're trying to celebrate. Everybody's, getting along. Let's say one family member, a narcissistic parent, starts up an argument. A sibling jumps in and they start, saying things and bringing up the past. A cousin jumps in and starts saying things. Maybe an aunt jumps in and starts saying things, and everybody is fighting. And let's say you're there standing back looking, thinking, oh my God, I can't believe this is happening. Now, according to the 7 processes of evil, the theory of mindlessly taking the first step to do something or, to engage in something says, I'm going to mindlessly jump into this and add to the chaos. I'm going to add to the situation. I'm going to possibly take the first step in doing something dark and evil here and unnecessary, even though it's Christmas, even though we're a family trying to get along. I'm going to go ahead and do something. I'm going to take the first step to start this triangulation, manipulation, chaos, whatever. So that's kind of an example of that one. The second thing is dehumanization of others and dehumanization. That's the third thing, dehumanization of yourself, right? So you kind of get lost. That family member, for example, who's doing these evil things, hurtful things, painful things, they may get lost in this zone, so much so that they dehumanize you in a way. And then in some ways, they also become dehumanized. They dehumanize themselves because they become like this ugly beast, right? A psychopathic father, a narcissistic mother who is detrimental to a child, detrimental to you, manipulated you, abused you, so forth, may do things that's dehumanizing to you growing up, and yet they're becoming like this evil beast on the inside against you, right? So they're kind of dehumanizing themselves in a sense, right? Diffusion of responsibility is the fifth process of evil, and it's kind of the idea that you're watching something happen. So let's say you're in this family argument at Christmas, and you're standing back looking at everybody taking a shot and fighting, and you just, instead of jumping in to stop the arguing, you just kind of step back and watch it, and you say, you know what? Maybe Aunt Carol over there will stop the arguing, or maybe Kevin over there will jump in and stop this. I'm not going to do it. So diffusion of responsibility is a part of his theory of evil, right? Just kind of letting something terrible happen, even though you have the ability to step up and fix it. I think too, uncritical conformity is the other thing. I think that's the sixth thing, meaning you're not going to question what is going on here, right? It's an evil thing happening within a family system or any kind of system, but we're talking more specifically about families. It's something evil that's happening here, and you're not critically picking and pulling it apart. You're conforming to the evil no matter what, right? So you're getting on the bandwagon without picking and pulling apart. Is this right? Is this fair? Is this moral? You're just engaging in that behavior. So uncritical conformity. And passive tolerance of evil is the seventh process of evil that he has mentioned. Just kind of this, you know what? I'm going to let them over there. I'm going to let them go ahead over there, hurt Kimberly over there. We know that she's always been the black sheep of the family. I'm just going to see what's done. I'm not going to stand up for her. I'm not going to step in. I'm not going to help. I may even tolerate the evil. I may even engage in it myself. So let me know, what do you think of these seven processes of evil? Do you see this pattern within your family? And would you even consider some family members evil? You let me know. I don't know. Let me continue on your chat comments, the chat box, and then we're going to wrap up. Yes, Miss Shank, you're welcome. She says, thank you for this confirmation. These folks are sick. Yes, you're welcome. Absolutely. Latanya says, wow. Okay, let me keep going. Lisa says, are people born evil or created? I actually think it's both, and research has supported the idea that evil can be it can be born into the world. There's some areas of knowledge, philosophy, existentialism, religion that believes that evil can be born, but research backs the idea that evil can be created over time through a variety of channels, right? There's some people who only surround themselves with people who think evil things to do to others all the time. That can create an evil person. So if you go back in the chat, once it's posted, you'll see where I talk about, there's two sides to this. There's the biological piece, and then there's also the environmental piece sometimes. But again, research really backs the idea that it can be created. Okay. I just want to keep Sharon Burnett. Welcome to the chat. I don't think I've ever seen you before, so glad to have you. Says, my mother put dog mess in my face wash after having a second reoccurrence of bone infection in my upper jaw. My goodness, that's like sadistic in and of itself, right? Because who wants that on them to begin with? Some people don't even like to smell it, much less for it to be on you. And so to me, that's a great example of being a sadistic person. You just want to see that other person hurt. C says, do you believe the idea that hurt people, or is that an excuse society uses? I think it's both. I do believe that hurt people, but I also believe that it is an excuse that society uses. Sometimes I will get assignments to do speaking engagements or conferences, and some of the people that stand up and ask me questions and they tell me about their lives, they say things like, my dad was abused as a child, and then he abused my brother, who then abused me, and so hurt people, and When I hear that kind of stuff at conferences or, live talks or whatever, I find myself just kind of detaching from that a little bit because, yes, hurt people, but at the same time, there's some accountability in here, right? Because you can hurt someone because you've been hurt, but then you can also not hurt someone if you've been hurt. So, like, there's an element of accountability in there that we really need to focus on, I think. Tina Turner, welcome to the chat. I don't remember seeing you, so welcome. She says, thank you for this topic. I was literally wondering 2 days ago if my mother is mentally ill or evil. Yeah, absolutely. You kind of have to ask yourself that, right? I've seen some people with family members who do not clearly meet diagnostic criteria for a sociopath or a psychopath, and they don't meet diagnostic criteria for mental illness. So then what's going on in this complicated family dynamic where this particular mother has abused her children, manipulated her husband, lied, had an affair on the outside of the marriage for like decades, right? So like you do have to kind of toss it up, right? Is it an evil person that just lives and breathes evil, and they think to hurt other people and don't care? Or is this a person that has a mental illness or a personality disorder? It's really hard to juggle. It really is. If you go back to this live chat, replay it and go to the beginning, I talk a little bit about that conflict there. Okay. Thank you, Latanya, for supporting. I think you're talking about Sharon. Thank you. That's very, very sweet of you. Dragon Man Assassin is talking about reincarnation. He says, I heard that reincarnation memories are memories that are part of your DNA from ancestors long ago. I heard that too. I don't know what I think on that. So I digress. I don't know. Christina says, evil has always been a hard concept to wrap my head around. Are you born or grow into being evil? You asked the same question I just answered. I think that's a fantastic one. And professionally, I don't know if I have a concrete answer with research that backs that up, but I think it can be both. I'll shorten it that way. I think it can be both. Sure did says, oh, okay. So they're responding to C. Let me make sure that I'm getting everybody before I log off. I could be on here with you for hours on this topic. Harriet, welcome to the channel. Glad to see you. I don't remember seeing you. Says, Tamara, do you think narc abuse is a battle between good and evil? The narcissist I dealt with told me he's not human and evil. He told me God loves me. I believe they know what they are doing. Oh, wow. Sounds like he was very conscious of what was wrong with him. Yes, I do believe that they do know what they're doing. I don't think there's one blind narcissist in the world. I think that there are times when they don't see how they hurt people, and there are times when they just straight up don't care. You know what I mean? Do they not see themselves? Maybe there's some blind spots where they can't see what they do to other people, but really it boils down to I don't care. And that's like the world revolves around a narcissist, or somebody put it better than that. Somebody that I've dealt with for years as a professional, we communicate off and on, said, they don't revolve around you, you revolve around them. Or do I have it backwards? Yeah. So, okay, I'll put it this way. I'll break it down and be more clear. We are a part of the narcissist world. The narcissist is not a part of our world. I'll put it that way. So this is their big world, and we're just little people in it. Sadly. You're welcome, Latanya. You're welcome. All right, guys, I have to sign off. I just want to make sure I'm getting everybody. I don't want to leave anybody out. I don't want to ignore any of you. Hi, Travel with Southern Chick. Glad to see you. Welcome to the chat. Hi, Edgar. Welcome to the chat. Says, great topic. Watching from California. More power to you. Thank you so much. Glad you think it's a good topic. Man, you guys are good in this chat box. Scott, thank you so much. Glad to see you. Welcome to the chat. Yeah. Okay. All right. I'm going to sign off. I'm going to say good night. Thank you so much for such a wonderful long chat. I think it was an hour. Glad to see all of you in the chat. Let me know in the comment section below if you have any further comments. I'll see you in the next live. We're not going to do a video. I'll see you next Wednesday. Love you guys so, so much. Thank you for all your support. Wonderful comments. It's so humbling. Have a good night, guys. I'll see you soon.